Hey, welcome to another episode of Relatively Damaged Live. I'm Angela.
And I'm Kat.
The live shows are currently streamed Mondays to Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. Remember to follow and subscribe and share with your friends. On the Monday segment of the show, Kat and I discuss topics we find interesting for about 30 minutes. So let's get to today's topic, which is how do we find unity? And Kat has the quote.
Yes. I love these quotes because they really spark our conversation. So the quote today is, "The intellect is a beautiful servant, but a terrible master. Intellect is the power tool of our separateness. The intuitive, compassionate heart is the doorway to our unity." And that's by Ram Dass.
I like the last part. The intuitive, compassionate heart is our way to unity.
Yes, it's beautiful because I think it's taking the kind of two parts of us, the mind and the heart. And I think the whole thing is that mind is the servant versus the master. So if the mind is the servant, it helps us to reason things out and to understand things in a way. But when the mind becomes the master, it kind of takes over and you get that kind of crazy thinking about things. And it leads to separateness because it leads to those comparisons. Well, this is good and that is bad. Or, you are in this group, I'm in this group. And so it leads to that kind of separateness, a mind run amok, as it were. But in that heart, I see that as coming from a place of love. You're different than me, but you're more the same. And we come from the same place. We're all human beings. And we may all be different, but again, we're the same.
Well, and I think we can be different and disagree and still find our similarities. I'm frustrated in my personal life today. And I don't and yet so are the other people. So I think maybe the compassion and the heart comes in recognizing that while I'm frustrated, maybe they are too. And therefore, I don't have to take it personally that if they're frustrated, it's just knowing they're frustrated and that's okay. And they know I'm frustrated and that's okay. It was cute. We've got a birthday coming up in the family here, and I had bought a cheesecake, and my daughter walked into the room right before we're going live. She's like, "That's it. I'm going to have the cheesecake." And I'm thinking to myself, well, darn it, wait for me.
We can barely say a piece, right?
Right. Yeah. But it would be really easy to take that personally and be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be left out, instead of recognizing, okay, we're all kind of in this moment of we're all throwing our hands up in the air going, okay, we have no control over anything that is happening right now. And that's okay. I mean, that's the thing. Again, I'm going to go back to it. And I think we've had this conversation a few times, like that control thing is just an illusion. Like,
absolutely.
It's such a freaking illusion.
let's because we don't want to get political here, but let's call out the elephant in the room. Coronavirus has affected all of us. Okay. I have family members sick with it right now. You have family members sick with it right now. And whatever you may think about vaccine, non-vaccine, masking, non-masking, the bottom line is we're really all sick of it. We're tired of of this. We're tired of being sick or having our loved ones sick in the hospital. The healthcare workers are tired of having to deal with it.
What
I
about
got
all
my
the
hair cut
flights
today.
that got canceled?
Yeah. Well, I got my hair cut today, and they were backed up. They usually have like 5 or 6 people in workers in the shop. They only had 2. So we're having to wait to get the haircut. Then you still have to disinfect everything when you're done. It's just a pain in the behind. And
Well, yeah.
no matter where you fall on the spectrum of your beliefs about it, we're all sick of it. That's something that we can agree on. And I think we'd all like to get over this and get past it and, return to some semblance of normal life. Life without masks on your face, being able to go and congregate freely and things like that. So here it is that, if you're an anti-vaxxer, people who are vaccinated could say, well, it's all your fault because you didn't get vaccinated and you're spreading it around. What's the point of that?
But hold on. I mean, but the other side is true. Like if you have been vaccinated, guess what? You carry the same load, if not more, than the person who wasn't vaccinated. So now, so everybody could blame everyone. Really.
But then again, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in here. What's the point of it?
No, you're fine. There is no point. There is no point because
Right.
we just have to get through it.
And I think that's what we can agree on. So having compassion for people who are sick, whether they're vaccinated or not, having compassion for other people, is just what we need to, I think, what we need to do in cases like this. And it's a good example because we are all affected by it.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't help that there is a lot of confusing news right now about, like some of the tests are catching it, some of them aren't. Can you really even trust a test? What if you're sick? I mean, it's so freaking confusing. And then, people who were negative then test positive. I mean, it just is, how do we become friends in this situation, right? Because I don't know that it's any one person's fault.
Well, exactly. And that's why I'm trying to get to the root of our question, is the unity. So our intellect is running amok right now, our collective intellect. The whole idea of, well, do you believe this expert? Do you believe that expert? What are they saying? They keep changing their mind, and we've talked before about realizing how much we don't know about things in general, and especially this virus, which keeps changing and mutating, and we're trying to respond as it's coming up. So, the bottom line is we really don't know. We can guess, we can rely on experts, do all this stuff. But if we let our intellect do that, we get into this blame cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the real key there is in the blame cycle. So if we're going to stay in that, it's going to cause disunity, disharmony between people. If we can get behind the fact, what do we have in common? What do we have in unity? In our hearts, we want this to be done.
Right. And I don't know that we get much of a choice on that matter
Right.
anyway.
But if we can all agree on that and then say, okay, we all want it to be done, and then have compassion for people.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're sick or not, whether they're masked or not, have compassion. I mean, it's just an example of, I think it's a good example of that quote. Where does our intellect run amok?
Right, because you're saying the intellect is the quote says, the intellect is a beautiful servant, but a terrible master. Like intellectually, what we know a lot about many things, but not everything.
Right.
Because it goes on to say it's the power tool of our separateness. And I'm thinking, I've got a dog knocking at the door. I'm not sure if you hear that. But I think it can become the power tool of our separateness for the, let me just close that door.
I'll take a drink in the meantime.
Consuela is a little stinker. I've given up on perfection with these things anyway, these lives. It's just going to happen. The dogs are going to come in, the kids are going to come in, everybody's going to come say hi. And I can either be that power tool for separateness and be like, are you effing kidding me? And I don't usually cuss, but like what the heck? I told you. Like, or I can be like, okay, well, this is the time for the dog to come in.
Yeah.
There is nothing I can do about that, unless of course I choose to separate myself. And again, I think that in separating myself, then I also am in some ways taking away parts of my own humanity, right? When I separate myself, it's in some ways I'm saying I'm better or in some ways than other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or dogs. And and all they want to do is give me some love,
Right.
So to have that compassionate heart. I mean, that's the other thing too, which I was pondering a lot over this weekend, as there have been these huge spikes. I think California is 300 and something % on the positive increase for COVID, not vaccines, but for COVID transmissions and things like that. And, then we're taking, because it's so contagious, then people aren't even allowed around other people. And sometimes it's in that connection that we find healing, is it in that love and in that energy. And you were part of a group with me that we really meditated. We used the Tonglen approach to meditation. So we were breathing in that pain and suffering or illness, and really breathing out that light and love and healing, because that's one of the only ways, especially with this virus, that we could even feel like we could make any sort of a difference. At least that's how I felt. I'm not sure if that's how you felt about using the Tonglen.
Oh, absolutely. Because, in reality, intellectually, I cannot change anybody's mind. I can make intellectual arguments, but if that person is not open to my intellectual argument and is closed to it, it's not going to make a dent in the situation. But what I can do is, I love you. I want you to be well. I don't want you to be sick. I want you to be safe. And then just take care of myself and make that connection with other people through that meditation that we did. And that was a wonderful experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it was nice for me because because I cannot go physically help people anyway. And I am so limited that for me, I actually felt like I was making some sort of a difference, that I was giving to the world versus, a lot of times, especially with people with disabilities that require care. I mean, we're really limited to where we can go and what we can do. And it just, even if I have a caregiver, it's not like I can be like, hey, I need you to help me take care of somebody else.
Right.
That's not, they don't, that's not allowed. And which is really interesting because, gosh, wouldn't it be neat if we just all took care of each other? Like, isn't that what we're here for on some level? And isn't that exactly what that compassionate heart is for, is that unity, so that we can all care for each other,
Yeah. And shouldn't it really be that way? I mean, why should we do something that puts somebody else down or be negative, even if it's not, an action, but it almost might be an inaction. You know, I'm better than you, so I don't need to count you. You're not part of my world because I'm here and you're there. And there's so much of that going on. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and really, when I think of like our political situation today, and again, I don't want to go too much into it, but there's too much of this, people on either side, and things aren't getting done that need to be getting done until it's a crisis. And
Well, I mean, things aren't getting done, I think, because we get locked into, if you made X decision before, then you have to stick with X decision. There's no rethinking allowed. There's this, as soon as you make a choice, you have to stick to it. And if you don't stick to it, then somehow you've lied. And instead of just, you learned something new and you're changing your mind, which I think is a huge problem, because maybe I did believe one thing before and now I've been given more information and I'm like, well, you know, maybe I'll change my mind now about that same thing. But there has to be room for that. And that doesn't make anyone a liar. It would be a liar if they said, oh, I never said that, but that's not something I would do. I would be like, no, I did say that. You're right. I did say that. I no longer believe that. Here's what changed my mind, but again, being willing to have those types of conversation is what helps keep us in that unity, I think. Being willing to say, oh, maybe I'm wrong.
It goes a long way because the truth is we all change. I'm a different person than I was 30 years ago. My outlook has changed. My understanding has changed. Does that mean I shouldn't allow that for other people? Of course not. Mm-hmm. But is the change sometimes is a intellectual change because you're open to facts and things like that. But the true change is that change of the heart. Realizing I'm not separate from other people. Even though we may be different, we're more similar than different.
Right. I mean, and those differences yet are also very important, right? Because I thought a long time ago when I started the podcast, I thought, oh my gosh, we need to show everyone our similarities. And in fact, I do still believe that's it's definitely part of my path, right? Is saying, hey, we are more similar than we are different. And at the same time, I'm thinking now we need to celebrate those differences, because without them, wouldn't it be boring? I mean, the amount of stories and things we get to talk about, that you and I get to talk about, we don't always agree on every aspect.
Correct.
Wouldn't that be boring? Like if we did?
It would be. It would be. And sometimes it's some of this working this stuff out. We have a different take, and we tend to come to this understanding as we go through this. And in terms of the differences, it's the differences that keep us interesting. But again, it's that similarity in the heart. So the differences are intellectual, experiential, but is the heart really the same?
Like, are we coming from love? Is that what you're saying? Or that compassion?
That's where I'm trying to get to. Yeah.
Okay. No, I think that's a great thought, is how do we stay in that compassionate heart and allow that room for differences? How do we do that? And how do we do that? And I mean, I feel like you and I can do that. We can have a disagreement and neither one of us will walk away. My kids and I, we certainly can have our differences, and it's not that I'm going to withdraw love. They know that I love them, and I never even say things like that anyway. In fact, I inspire them to let me know when I'm irritating the crap out of them, because we all do it to each other. Okay. We just do.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, and that's the giving of grace. That's the where the real love and the real unity comes in. Is you may annoy the crap out of each other, but at the end of the day, are you going to be there for each other? Are
Yeah.
you going to love each other? Are you
Yeah.
going
And I
to,
think I was going to say, I think there's also that balance too, because there do get to be like abusive situations and things like that, that we really need to, that people do need to be cognizant and aware of. And those they're not okay.
right?
And I think and you can't, everyone's experience is different, but if you think you're in an abusive situation, please go to the websites out there and look at the information. I know there's a text line, 741-741, I think is one of the abuse situations. Because in some cases, the fact that we can share, like in my family, that we can share that we're irritating each other, that we're feeling irritated by each other. I think, and then we can walk away and give space is healthy for us. We can say, look, I'm feeling a little flooded right now. I need to walk away, because at that point in time, I can't even get close to that unity,
Mm-hmm,
or they
mm-hmm.
can't get close to that unity. And I would rather them say, you know what, I need some space, than to fight or to engage or to pick up that rope, or however, whatever you want to call it, just because my relationships are super important to me. And, sometimes we also need those people in our lives that are willing to call us on our crap and say, look, you're being a jerk right now. you know?
Well, yeah, exactly. And thank you for pointing out that abusive situation, because you know knowing, being aware of what other people need, i.e., I need some time to myself, or if somebody says that to you, I need time alone. It's a alone time is, I think, is very important. I think it gives us that space to be able to find that unity.
Yeah, to come
But
back
if
into the heart, you mean? Like,
exactly, to because if you're in the middle of a situation that's contentious, you're getting on each other's nerves. It's hard to find, like you said, it's hard to find that, and that space away. Okay, it gives you that time to think. And abusive relationships are not like that.
no, rarely
Um,
do they get, time to away and time to think.
yeah. So I mean, I think what we're talking about here is more genuine types of relationships. And it's
Yeah.
good that people know, and they think they might be in an abusive relationship, or feel that they're in an abusive relationship, that that they take advantage of those resources out there.
Well, yeah, and I think it's really easy, especially, for some people in abusive relationships, to hear maybe a conversation like this and then somehow justify what's happening. Oh, but we just need to find our way to unity, and just we don't have any way of. Becky says hello. We don't have any way to bring that other person. We can't make other people do what we want them to do. It's just not going to happen. We can voice our opinion. That's about it.
Right. Exactly. And yes, yes. So I mean, that is important. You do have to listen to that inner voice that you have. And again, the head, the heart. If the heart's telling you something is not right, it's probably something you need to investigate.
Yeah.
Every person needs to investigate on their own. And if you're on a roller coaster, 1 minute it's great, the next minute you feel like you're being attacked, that might be an indication something's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I'll tell you, it's really easy for people in abusive situations to intellectually justify staying there, and it's a
And
lot
another
harder
example.
to.
Go ahead, finish your thought.
I was gonna, and it's a lot harder to find that to hear the heart too, like just. But go on. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say another example of the intellect being the master instead of the servant. So if your intellect is telling you, well, and just making justifications, well, he really does love me because, he
Yeah,
bought
or
me
she
these
or they.
gifts. Or they, yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm really working on my PC stuff over here. You know
No,
me.
good for you. Good for you. Thanks for calling me out.
Sorry, that wasn't meant to call you
No.
out. Is I was calling
No,
myself out. Wait, remember all these other people too, because I
right.
think that the dynamic too can change. We're very aware in society what abuse looks like between a male and a female, because we've been, it's been put out there a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's as widely known for the other in other groups, as far as like trans, lesbian, gay, LGBTQIA, and then whatever. I know I don't know where we're at yet on that, but
There's also like in work relationships where there's
mm-hmm.
a boss employee dynamic or coworker dynamic.
So true. Thank you for
You
bringing
know,
that up,
yeah.
because that's
Um,
true. That's very true.
oh yeah,
And
and
that's even
you
more
know,
scary because of your livelihood. Sorry, I just got excited about that.
well, we may have to do another show on that one.
Right.
But so we're sitting here, and so we've had some great examples of where the intellect can be the servant or the master, and where do we need to go to find that unity together. So like in a workplace dynamic, if you want to have a healthy work environment and a good people think, well, work, it should be all intellectual, you have to do it and get the work done. But with those relationships, especially in the way that our work lives have changed, relationships are so much more important. And so the ability to get along with people, with customers, with coworkers, with bosses, it becomes so much more important. And again, where does that place of unity start? It starts from the heart. It doesn't start from the head. At least it doesn't for me. And this is something I wish which would have known earlier in my career.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was always, for me, it was always about the intellect.
Yeah.
Who's the smartest, who's the best, who's the most efficient, who can be the best problem solver. And really, it wasn't until mid-career that I really learned more about the relationships and how important those were, to be able to get things done. And it's just as important of a factor as being competent in whatever field you're in, I think.
I think so. And I think, though, that comes down to, how do you choose the employees and the people that you want to work with? And furthermore, how do employees choose the companies they want to work with? And, that is a question I wish I would have asked myself, or even realized I had a choice early on, that it was up to me who I worked for, and the power was not all in the employer. While they were going to pay me, I still had some power, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I don't think we think about that. I know I was definitely not someone who thought of that, right? So I can't be the
Yeah.
only one.
Well, I see we're almost done with our half hour, and it's gone by quickly.
We are.
I do have a few parting words as usual. Um, I would just like to challenge our viewers to, if you're sensing disunity in your relationships, to look to your heart and see if you can find the unity there.
Yeah, and if you're not sure how to connect with your heart, just reach out. We have some tools that we can share.
Absolutely.
I'm always honored to have these conversations with you, Kat, even when I'm frazzled. I think we still have fun.
We always do. I love it, and I'm glad we're doing this. And what a great topic for the new year.
Yeah, so great. Okay, there's also a Relatively Damaged podcast where I interview amazing guests who have overcome some sort of struggle in their lives and how they found hope and healing. You can find the podcast on Spotify, Apple, and many more. I'm Angela.
And I'm Kat.
Well, I got it to the right side. We'll see you next week.